right, City Pigeons Podcast, episode 120. Here we are, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be back again on this fine Wednesday evening.
Hold on, just tweeting this.
Are you tweeting this?
Yeah.
April 30th. I've never actually said the date before. It's the first time I've ever said the date. Oh, my goodness. Well, it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm joined, as always, by the esteemed Mike Meach.
No one ever called me esteemed before.
You're esteemed. You're the number
I'm usually
one.
called a cohort.
You're the number one most influential person from
Shout out to Infamous, which the Mobb Deep album just celebrated its 30th anniversary.
30th.
Eternal banger.
Damn. Yeah, that's quality.
One of the greatest albums of all the time.
Quality stuff. Rock, I didn't introduce you yet. You gotta wait.
425.95, I believe.
Amazing. Meach paid $15 for that.
If you check my Twitter, I still had the receipt. I retweeted it on the anniversary.
Of course,
I had the receipt from the wall in Oxford Valley from that day. I bought 2 copies of the CD. I don't know what for. It's not like I
probably for one of the homies.
Lived in a divorced house with one of my dad's house and one of my mom's house.
Oh, you know what? Maybe I didn't.
Maybe one for the car, and I never bought the same CD twice before, so I probably bought it for somebody.
You still got the CD?
That was
number
one of my notes.
That's how I still have the
talk
receipt.
About the Mobb Deep album for a good 2 minutes to start.
This goddamn show. I'm so sorry.
You know what's funny? I actually
said Infamous.
I was like having trouble sleeping the other night, and I came up with an idea for a segment. It's called "You Had to Be There," and it's Meach's. You know, the problem is your recollections and your nostalgic references are very impromptu. But this would require you to come up with something in advance, and you had to be there because nobody really understands like what it's like. Do you know what I mean?
That's actually a good idea, and I could.
All right.
I could.
You heard it here.
Into a segment.
Can someone out there in Webland verify you can hear this? Because when we started, I couldn't hear it. And hopefully you can. But Tommy over here, Tom, how are you doing?
What's up, Jesse? Doing well, baby.
Yeah.
I'm up here on the main stage.
What's happening, baby?
Nice.
It's not like that, guys. It's not like that. All right. I didn't intend for there to be a hierarchy of stages. All right. We just have to. We can't fit. Club. You can't fit 6 people in one.
Now, welcome Tom Henneman to the main stage.
Beautiful.
Girls,
all right.
Girls.
I am Jesse Randall, and I'm happy to be here as usual. And at this time,
thank you, Matty Market. Says we can hear it fine.
Oh, hell yeah. Thank you.
My man,
hey,
Matt Market. What's up, brother?
Yes. All right. Now, at this time to bring in the inferior members on the second stage. Just kidding. Okay, let's get them in here. We got Mark Goodhart, as per usual, looking good. The dome is freshly shorn.
No suit this week. What's happening?
You know, that's a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Yo, once you wear the suit, you can't downgrade again.
All you need is love.
Now, where's the NFLPA logo? Nothing. You're just Coach Goodhart today. Coach
this is
Mark.
Freelance Mark.
Dad Mark.
This week, though.
We are 2-0.
That's
Cougars
big.
are 2-0,
Cougars, baby, coming in hot. And we got Roger Matthews. Rock, how you doing?
Rocky.
He's clearly excited about the last ever Wu-Tang show that we're going to have in July, although I don't believe it's the last show. Wu-Tang for the children. And in the middle, we have our special guest this week, a man who has a life experience that is really incredibly unique, and we're very much looking forward to hearing about it. Bob Levant. Bob, what is up, dude? How you doing?
What's happening, Bob?
You gotta get a little closer. Thanks to you guys.
Yeah, Brock, tell him how this works.
Is this you guys got this at Corvettes or Gimbals? I've already talked about Oxford Valley Mall, and I'll skip over the
That's a brief introduction to Meach. That won't be the last.
Make sure, Bob.
I remember my mom had a Bamberger's credit card. How's that for a throwback?
Bob, you got to get on top of this thing, right? You know, if you need to tilt it towards you a little bit, that's cool too. Just do the best you can. Try. Mark can help you out. Mark knows very little about how to do this. All right, you're the man. All right, so hey, it's my pleasure. So Bob, his most notable attribute is that he is Mark Goodhart's cousin, right? Are you guys like legit cousins? Because we hear a lot of the bullshit like second cousin, whatever. You guys actual cousins?
I was gonna say it's very clear. The mannerisms, everything. Those guys are straight cousins.
Yeah, but you know what?
If I had the dome freshly shaved, which I don't tonight,
yeah,
you'd see it. But yes, we are legitimately.
Put a beanie on Mark and have him switch seats. We wouldn't know the difference.
I told him that he could come on the pod, but we just couldn't have another bald guy. So
right. So many bald guys, so little time. Yeah. Fink had a last minute dinner pop up. It happens.
Did he though, or is he out with Pagan?
It happens. Oh, you think he's with Pagan?
I don't know. I mean, he.
Okay, so Tom, listen. Tom's bringing up an interesting point here. Last week we did trade Fink to Crossing Broad for 2 freelancers
To be
and a
named
Wawa
later.
gift card. But as expected,
One
Fink
of the freelancers failed their physical.
No, Fink failed the physical, actually, and that's what happened. And so we thought he's going to be back, but he's at dinner. Maybe he's with Kyle, like renegotiating or exploring his options. We don't know. But either way, we love Fink, and he has missed. And it's a good thing he's not here because then we'd have 3 people from the Northeast, which would just be at least 2 too many.
Bob, what part of the Northeast are you from?
I am a proud graduate of Northeast High School. Actually, spent most of my time living kind of down toward Oak Lane when I was going Northeast, but I'm a graduate of Wilson Junior High School
All right.
and Northeast High School.
Nice.
And worked at Way Out in the Roosevelt Mall,
Yeah.
only because Sam Goody would not hire me.
Oh,
So that'll be the end of the Philly Northeast references I'll drop.
When he asked you where you were from the Northeast, I just expected you to say Franklin Mills. Like that's what I was expecting. But,
Franklin
you know.
Mills probably wasn't even around when you grew up, correct? It was
Bob, you're speaking
Whoa.
Meech's love language.
Whoa.
no. When I moved to the Northeast, it was a racetrack.
Wait.
It's not in.
Dun,
We're
dun,
probably
dun,
close to
dun.
the same
You
age.
had to be there. Oh my gosh. All right, where to begin? Before we dive into all of the amazing things that I want to talk about with you, Bob, because, Mark has told us for some time about what you've been up to with your career, and it's fantastic. Just so everybody knows, Bob I have been calling you an emotional intelligence guru. I kind of made that up myself, but Bob wrote a book that I have here. He's given us all copies, and I'm going to read this because I feel like I need a little bit of a North Star right now. It's called Finding Polaris, Intentional Living for an Extraordinary Life by Bob Levant right here. You can get this online, I assume, Amazon, whatever, right, Bob?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. And I think Bob's the most interesting thing, Bob, I know you've worked with a bunch of different clients and a lot of great corporate clients. You've worked with some coaches in the college and professional ranks. To me, what's obviously very interesting is that you were involved with the Dallas Mavericks last year when they went to the NBA Finals. And I have seen many quotes from Jason Kidd talking about how instrumental your service was to the way they approached the process of getting through the season, getting the finals. So I want to hear all about that. But before we dive into all that, we got to just do a quick little reaction. We did have the Eagles draft last week. We had our draft preview show. I don't think it really went down as anybody would have expected. Nobody was really talking about Jahad Campbell. He ends up getting picked by the Birds. They end up getting the safety from Texas. I got to be honest with you. I do think I'm like fat and happy off the Super Bowl because I just kind of was like, all right, cool. Like if these guys are good, great. Once everyone was like the Jahad Campbell guy, fall into them. I just, it was great. Howie did a good job. Cool. Let's go, move on. Does anybody have any particular thoughts about the Eagles draft? Are we giving out grades here? Because I'm just going to give a totally random, I'm not really sure, B+.
Yeah, I like that. I just like the fact that they're starting to pick guys from these big conferences. You know what I'm saying? Like the SECs and what's the other?
SEC,
Big Ten.
pretty much.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, Nebraska. Is Nebraska in the Big Ten then?
Yes.
I
Bottom
don't know.
line is they're going where the talent usually goes, and I like that approach. You see guys like Georgia guys, and for the most part, these guys perform. So
you don't want wide receivers from TCU?
no, absolutely not. I like the fact that you start to go that direction because there's a pedigree there, right? So you go to these big ass schools because you're
A 5-star recruit. Yeah.
When you're kids, the natural progression is to be the top talent when you get older. So start picking these guys up, and if they don't pan out, they don't pan out. But honestly, I don't know who any of these guys are they pick, but I'm so let's go.
And Howie we trust. He's earned that.
Yeah, my boy Cam Scadaboo went to the Giants.
Oh.
I was really pissed about that.
Oh.
Like
I think
round?
the Giants had a pretty
I was just going to say,
they had a couple guys that Abdul Carter.
as the kids would say, low key, the Giants did have a pretty good draft. I mean, between Abdul Carter and Scadaboo, Scadaboo is going to be a player. Man.
Yeah,
If you saw the look in his eyes during that bowl game, you didn't see the bowl game that Scadaboo was in.
the running
you
back
can't.
/ wide receiver / I'll do anything on the field that you ask me to.
I'll murder
coach.
I'll just
someone.
mash
Yeah.
somebody.
No, he's
No,
like
dude,
a
no.
rich man's Mike Allstott.
Yeah. Like John Ritchie on steroids. This guy's insane. So,
He's a crazy white dude. Played for Arizona State and went crazy in a bowl game.
All right. But wait.
The Giants will screw it up somehow.
But the Giants have like
They'll fuck it up and give them to us in 3 years.
the Giants quarterback,
We'll turn them
starting
into a champ.
quarterback is going to be Russell Wilson. Is this right?
Here's that one.
Wow, that's something, man. Let me tell you.
He also had the spiritual leader, James Winston, in the locker room.
Oh my gosh,
So you can't underplay that.
that's quite a quarterback room.
Here's my stupid prediction. It means nothing. The Giants are going to be better than the Commanders next year.
That's not going to happen.
That's a
I'll
bold,
take that bet.
That's a bold
take
prediction.
That's
that
not
bet.
that bold. I think the Commanders.
Didn't the
lost
Commanders
a
have a
lot.
pretty good draft too? I think they did. Anyway, who cares? Eagles,
cares?
defending Super Bowl champions. The rich just got richer. We're going to be great. We're going to win again. Yeah, it's all good. Yeah, Fink's not here to do the Eagles.
I
Chant.
just did it.
Jihad
soft
Campbell,
version.
Bummer.
Seems like a monster athlete. I don't know anything about him, but his measurables and his motor and his Alabama.
Now, can I just say one thing real quick? You called him Jihad.
Jihad?
Yeah, I think it's
Jihad.
better to say
It is better to
Jihad.
say jihad than
It's just
jihad.
a strange name.
it is. But
So
you get my point.
yeah, but I don't know where to put the same
Jihad.
thing. Like you were calling Bob
Levant.
Yves Saint Bob
Bob
Laurent.
Saint Levant.
Levant.
Yeah.
Like, come on,
My
man.
bad.
In the Northeast is called.
Yeah, sometimes you just don't know where to put the
Hey, you see
enunciation.
Jihad? All right.
Hey, Jihad Campbell just had 3 sacks.
Anything that we want to cover on the Phils? I see they're winning tonight. Hopefully, we can try to win this series against the Nats. Maybe get a sweep tomorrow.
Since the last time I was on, they won a couple series. Obviously. I think maybe.
Yeah, they'll be all right.
Rocky on baseball. They get a little.
Philly's doing Philly's
Wait,
thing.
do you have one lined up?
I kind of, but like.
He could put one together. It doesn't take long.
Yeah, I have kind of one, but we don't need to go.
I'm not that inspired by that.
Yeah, you're not selling yourself
Here's-
too hard.
here's
I have more of an observation.
Here's the thing that happened really quick. Sorry. The Braves are only like 2 games behind this.
Yeah.
And that happened like that. Like,
You knew that was
they
coming.
they
Yeah.
started off
You knew that
really
was coming.
bad, and they're back.
Strider back.
No, I don't know.
All I know is I've been saying Romano is doing Romano things and Kirkring is doing
Bullpen
Kirkring
doing
things.
bullpen things.
Oh my gosh.
Every time I see a Philly do something that they always do, that's
That's-
I just go, he's doing him things.
You know,
like I love that.
I wanna-
saying.
I want to give the listeners and the viewers some. I want them to understand what it's like to be here in the coop this time of year. A lot of you guys don't know this, but we had a kickboxing organization come in underneath the coop, and it's gotten to the point when we walk up the stairs, you can actually smell the sweat. Like the hockey gear sweat. That's
smells
what
like
it
a
is.
boxing gym.
It's coming through, and to do the podcast, we have this really loud HVAC unit, so we have to shut it off. And right now, it feels
Turn the fan
incredibly still in here. And the hockey sweat from the kickboxing. Luckily, they've stopped their activities. No, you can't turn on the fan. Those things are like turbines, dude. It's not going to work. So it's tough in here, but we're going to persevere. We're going to get through it for the people out there.
I think later in the episode.
It feels in my house right now because
Yo,
I'm one of those people that I draw the line. I'm like, it's just too early to put the air conditioning on.
Hot,
I just
hot
open
is
up all
hot.
the windows,
mm-mm.
and then I'm like, all right, well, we don't have to use the oven this week. And Daniel's like, what do you mean we're not using the oven?
It's
this week?
insane.
And I'm like, everything you're cooking needs to be cooked on the grill. She's like, but I don't know how to turn the grill on. So it's this like vicious cycle. But I'm like, nah, it is too early for air conditioning. Like, we don't have that point in the year in Philadelphia anymore where you just have the windows open. It's like either
Yeah,
40
you're right.
degrees or 85 degrees.
Now I live in a house that like the heat rises, right? So as you like come,
That's in every.
I know, but no.
That's in nature.
Let me clarify. Some houses have like
East Falls is different.
new construction has like proper AC. In my house, you walk up the stairs and it's like a 10-degree difference.
It hits.
So I've started to really like try to gamify the situation. I'm like, I got to look, okay, Thursday is going to be 80, but it's 50 now. We have to turn the air on now.
Yeah.
It's got to be freezing
That's
in
the
here
proper way to look at it.
before. That's how you got to do it.
Not
So,
you can't use
it's
the oven
genius.
this week.
I know. It's
Am I the
genius.
only one not using air conditioning this week?
Absolutely.
No,
Probably.
I've had my windows open and my little fans blasting, but
All right.
I'm nice and comfortable.
All right.
Well, I have it on all.
That's enough
Now that we're all
HVAC
comfortable.
talk.
Had to be there.
Yeah. I started it, and then it just kind of kept going. Okay.
But eventually, I think we should just go down to this dojo and challenge them. And whoever wins, like either they have to move out or we have to move out. Like
How
one of
are we
those old
It's like
school-
Brazilian jiu-jitsu and kickboxing. I'm not stepping him. I've already ducked him once and had Betty handle.
It's
He
like,
was salty at us because we had somebody up here
For like 2
recording
minutes.
who can
for
win
like
one
with a
gorilla or
piano.
6 podcast hosts?
Yeah, that's not going to work out very well. All right.
He's a
So
big dude.
enough with the intro BS. It's time to talk to Bob because unlike the rest of us,
10-minute intro.
he has a very interesting life situation that we want to hear about. All right. So Bob, why don't you just give us a real quick overview? I know you are a lawyer, right? Like, yeah, I hear you.
Much
Me
better now.
too. Me and Mark too. Although Mark still has to do his thing, I think. Yeah. Yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough out there. But then you kind of like figured out a new path, and it would be great to just hear a little bit about how you ended up kind of even doing what you do now, and then what you do now, if that makes any sense. I'm going to let you explain that to us.
I'm going to decipher that question.
Good luck. Good luck.
It's actually the only way to ask it, and the beginning of the answer is I don't know exactly how I got here, but we can talk about it some. So I was a trial lawyer. I was a Philly public defender for a bunch of years.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah, you're welcome. And made my days carrying large numbers of files over to a very, very tough and toxic criminal courthouse and doing bare knuckle courtroom battle. And the thing about the courtroom is it's the ultimate petri dish for humanity. If you've spent any time in a courtroom as a juror, as a lawyer, as a party witness participant, or just as an observer, it is really the ultimate petri dish. And so for me, excuse me, it started trying to figure out my own junk in the courtroom. Like it is the courtroom when you're trying. I was trying, nasty criminal cases, and the courtroom is a anxiety-inducing place when you're trying cases in front of a jury, and everybody in there is, palpably in crisis, right? Whether you come in, the defendant side, the victim side, the officers, everybody, right? So, it started with me trying to figure out kind of how to deal with my own stuff and be at my best and manage my emotions inside the courtroom. And then as that happened over time, I started to realize that was the way to leverage myself as a lawyer, to become the really, best version of myself as a trial lawyer I could be. And so it became a healthy obsession to figure people out, figure myself out. And so this was a long time in the making. At the same time, somewhere deep down inside, I always knew the courtroom was.
Bob, I'm seeing someone saying that the mics aren't on at the secondary table, so I'm gonna have to work on that real quick. You can't hear that out there?
Said again.
You can't hear that out there? You can't hear Rocky, Lindsay?
Mike is muted on the freaking thing.
No.
On their thing, it might be.
No.
Don't involve text.
I'm
I'm
That's
using
not right.
sign language just while you're getting it together, right? Court and scary.
Yup.
Right?
That
The
mic
mi-
needs to be off, Rocky.
No, that doesn't. It
touch
doesn't
the
go through
computer.
there. Rocky, stay in your lane. Okay. There's nothing you can do here. No. Should be able to hear that. Sounds like he's in the bathroom. All right. How about? Wait, hold up, real quick. How about Mark and Rocky's mic? Can you guys speak into that real quick? Can you guys hear that? I like this real-time feedback. Thank you very much. Good job, Ian. Right? Has nothing. Blake, I need real feedback, Blake.
I love you, Blake.
Oh my gosh.
They're all in the bathroom.
They're all in the
Oh.
bathroom.
Together.
All right.
Together.
Well, let's.
Why don't I switch seats with Bob?
Why don't we do a shuffle?
All right. Yeah, let's do that to
Bob,
start,
come
and
up
then
here,
I'll
buddy.
work it out. Sorry for the technical
This
difficulties,
was all a
folks.
ploy on his part to get up to the main stage.
You really are.
You get to go home.
No.
You get to go home.
All right. We're switching seats, everyone. And then Bob is going to talk for 10 minutes
Tag, you're
while
in.
we figure this out. Here he comes.
Marco.
The music stopped, and I'm
All right,
the last
Bob.
one sitting down.
Hey, welcome in, man. It's
What's
good
going
to
on,
have you.
brother?
This is Bob
I'm
Levant.
at the adults table.
There you go.
All right,
All right, Bob. Pick it up.
all right.
What
so,
were we saying?
you asked me
Wait,
how
courtroom.
I think the question was, what do you do? How did you end up here?
Tell your
Please
life
explain
story.
this to me, right? In 30
You
seconds.
got this.
Tell your life story. So while I was in the bathroom with my two friends over there and y'all couldn't hear me, I said that what I do now is an outgrowth of the courtroom, right? So I was a trial lawyer for a long time, and the courtroom is without question like a petri dish of humanity. And so in my early days as a lawyer, I couldn't eat in the mornings. I was sick. I was like anxiety ridden. And so over time, it was about figuring out how could I be a better version of myself. And then as that unfolded, it really became clear that the courtroom was a great place to learn about humanity. If you've ever been in a courtroom as a lawyer, participant, witness, observer, it is a place where, humanity plays out in real time. And in the kind of work I was doing, everybody was in crisis. So there was this palpable kind of like feel in the room. And it became, for me, the place to like figure people out, figure myself out, and then kind of leverage emotional intelligence to be the best trial lawyer that I could. During the course of that, it became clear to me, I kind of always knew in my soul that the courtroom wasn't the place to use my skills, at least not in the way that would really feed my soul. And so slowly over time, I began to really explore that. And then one day I made a commitment that I was going to do one thing, as I say, each day, let go where it was going to take me, but make a commitment it was going to take me somewhere. And that was, really, really kind of the shift for me. And I began to pour myself into what I do now. So got a master's degree in mental health counseling, started writing, and just kind of thinking about myself as something different than what I was. And ultimately, the best way to put it is I allowed myself to choose to do something because I enjoyed being good at it rather than because I truly enjoyed it. So what I do now, the things that I loved in the courtroom, I took those with me. I just left behind all of the crap, the emotional deregulation, the conflict, right? I problem solve now.
Mm-hmm.
I deal with people, I listen, I observe, I advocate. I mean, stuff that I just love, and the stuff that ate me up from the inside, I just left that behind. So that's how I got here, and how I got here, with, Fortune 500 companies and professional sports teams and collegiate athletic departments is by really just following the breadcrumbs of life. The universe opened up, and people appeared that probably would have appeared anyway, but I saw them differently. And one thing led to another. And the foreword to the book is written by Sean Sweeney, who's the lead assistant with the Dallas Mavericks. He is a one of one in terms of he's one of one in terms of a really unique combination of high intensity and consistency. He delivers every day at unbelievably high levels. I met him in a chance encounter outside of a hotel, and we struck up a conversation, and a lot of things happened from that, and other relationships. So here we are in the coop.
From there to the coop.
From there to the coop.
It feels like you've made it.
What I was trying to get to.
It feels like you've made it. I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what people say when they come in here. Real quick, Mark, I want you to, can you ask a question here so that we can do a little bit of test? Go ahead and ask Bob a question. Even if we can't hear the question, he'll answer it.
I'll weave it in. I'll weave it in.
Either way. So, Jesse called you an emotional intelligence guru. And
It's good, right?
Thank you.
You can use that.
You're hired.
Yeah.
Before we even pass judgment on the guru part, emotional intelligence. It's a term, in 2025 that people throw around. I like to think, because I know you well enough, that you don't throw it around, that you lean into it, and that it is, part of what makes you effective and makes your clients effective. But what is emotional intelligence to you?
Try it now.
Yeah, the guru thing, I'm gonna have to sit with that. Peak performance coach, I go with that. Guru, I may add that to the profile. So what is it?
Guru.
What depends where you. It's like the other conversation.
Levant,
right?
guru.
It's my fancy name. So here's what I would say, Mark. Right. All of us have essentially an operating system that's running 24/7 in the background of our brains and selves talking to us and analyzing everything that's happening externally, right? And our ability to understand, I call it, external noise, the stories we tell ourselves, the things that are rolling in our heads, right? The ability to understand and contextualize what is happening to you, particularly when you're competing at the highest levels, whether that is, in the boardroom on, in a Fortune 500 company, whether it is, on the hardwood with an NBA team, whether it's, coaching your kids, right? In Little League.
Let's not. But I know you're trying to make Mark feel good, but that's not the same.
What I would say the battle for your emotional intelligence and to remain calm when you're coaching your own child is its own unique challenge.
Yeah, you're right about that.
But what I would say is that what is shared is that if you want to compete at your highest level, you want to reach your own ultimate greatness, you have got to have a framework to understand what is happening to you, right? Otherwise, you are getting pulled away from the thing that you should be focused on. And so understanding emotional intelligence, and what I do is create a framework and a context for highly competitive, highly successful people and organizations to understand what the freak is happening to them, right? So whether it's in an unbelievably high pressure, high intensity moment in sports, whether it's a hard decision in corporate America, it's the ability to understand where your distractions come from, what your reaction triggers are to them, and the ability to ultimately slow down enough in real time in the moments of competition to have it all slow down, even though of course it's not, right? But it appears that it is. So
I need this.
So that is what I do, and I do it anywhere I go because it's all the same, right? Your context may be different, but what happens to us as humans when we're performing, as parents, as friends, as siblings, anytime we're getting jacked up and getting off our game, right? It's
happens to me.
It's
every
think
time
about
we do the podcast
for anybody out there, right? It's you did a great job actually with the mics not working.
Well, they're not. I don't know that they are.
Good job, but I didn't mean fixing the mics. I meant how you responded to it.
Yeah, we got to roll with it.
Yeah, so there you go. So
I'm so pissed off.
Jesse said it in jest because you're talking about Fortune 500 companies and you're talking about coaching your kids in Little League. But, you and I have worked on this enough together. I think what you would say, correct me if I'm wrong, is that this emotional intelligence applies as much or even more so in normal people's everyday life.
Yeah. So underneath almost all, one of the places we try to get to is being able to become less reactive and more responsive, right? So one of the intersections is when we have that choice to react or choose to respond, and sometimes that means doing nothing. Almost all of the time when we're triggered, somewhere underneath of it is fear, okay? And so I tell people all the time, the place to practice this, if you have children, if you are in a committed relationship, if you have parents, siblings, the places in your life where, and the reason that kids is a great example, where it matters the most. I don't care how much an NBA championship matters. It doesn't matter as much to anybody in that organization as their kids if they have them, right? And so our fear is at its highest around our kids, right? And I can say that for me, for sure. And so I practice it in my personal relationships because if you can do it there, right? If you can have a context and understand what is happening that triggers you in your personal relationships, right? And maybe, after 15 straight years of the dysfunctional Thanksgiving dinner going sideways the same way every single year, right? Where, Uncle Tom and Aunt Sally go at it over the same stuff and then everybody starts. If you can manage that on the 16th year better than you did the year before, then you take that out into, I don't care what your job is. I don't care whether you're playing on an NBA franchise, you're a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, or you're Jesse here running the City Pigeons pod and struggling tonight, right? It's all about, right? It's all about, but he's not, right? We're killing it, right? But it's all about how do you respond? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So Beach has 5 kids. So how would you advise him to handle that?
And listen, don't tell me suicide because that's not an option at this point.
I mean, but here's the thing, right? I mean, God bless you, by the way. Here's what I would say, right, is that in all of those moments, and for you it's times 5, that, you know, your toes are crinkled or your fists are bald, simply asking, like, what is it that I'm really scared of, right? That they're going to make this knucklehead decision and then that knucklehead decision, and then all of a sudden their life is going to be sideways, right? It's understanding all the things that you're scared of, because that's always what makes raising kids hard, you know. And most of the time we try too hard, right? Most of the time doing less is more, and doing whatever you're going to do at a moment that's not the one that you're inside of. And all of that comes from understanding that it's scary as you know what to raise kids, right? It is scary in some ways when they're younger. My kids are getting older. It's just all scary, right? You're worried about it, like, no matter what. And so I let go of that, and I live in the moment. One of the things that I do, you know, with teams and all organizations. So Jesse was asking, you know, about, you know, being involved in NBA finals, in, you know, high level college athletics. If you're focused on the result, then you're pulled off of your process. Right. So whether that's in a pairing situation or a sports situation, if you are focused on what's going to happen at the end of the game or, you know, in the next possession, then you're outside of the one that you're playing, you know, and so that's what's so great about sports. It's why I love kids playing sports. It's why I love talking about sports. It's why I love being involved in it. It is, you know, like the courtroom, right? Like the courtroom. It's a petri dish for humanity, right? And emotional intelligence.
Out of curiosity,
You know what? As a parent of 5 kids, I mean, you know, nobody who's not a parent even gives a shit about it. But it's really hard because, you know, they all have different personalities, and you have to, you know, tread with each one differently. But when you see results, it's very, you know, it's self-fulfilling. It's really cool to see. It's better than anything else as a human that you can possibly see. And like, I got one kid who's 23 years old. He graduated already. He's got a job at a nice engineering firm. He makes more than me and my wife combined already. Like, you know, you feel really good when something like that happens. But, you know, I understand what you're saying. In the moments, it's really tough to deal with it. And, you know, when you have so many kids to deal with, it's tough, but it's really,
Great.
Congrats, man.
Phil's
Hey,
winning.
congrats, man.
thanks, dude.
Sounds
Thanks,
good.
man.
I got it. Out of curiosity. So you're very prolific in this whole sphere, right? So
Try.
what?
I'm trying to sound check. Phil's winning. Did you see the Phil's one?
Yeah, they want good work.
Jesse's prolific at fixing this.
By the way,
He's
look
got
at
it.
this. Did you see what it looks like with 2 ball guys over here? This looks terrible.
It's
I don't understand why 3 microphones.
like a pair of testicles over
All
there.
right, keep going. Rock,
Uh,
it's a good thing that you stepped into the main chair because you know how to do all this. So I'm just going to take off. Good luck.
Thanks. Anyway, my question was: so you're prolific at all this. How did you become prolific at all? Did you like take classes, or did it just like come through life experiences? What happened? Because I mean, the way you're talking, it's just like, wow, this guy, he had to go into school for this or something like that. It just
The school of hard knocks.
school of hard knocks. Okay.
The school of hard knocks. You know, the best way to answer that question is, you know, every single day, I try to let go of all the stuff that got in my way, you know, for years. Let go of the things that, you know, I'm really grateful that every day I had as a lawyer, because I learned so much there.
Right.
But what kept me in the courtroom longer than I probably should have been there was fear of, is it going to work? You know, what are people going to say? What if I can't make a living?
Right.
You know, I can always go back and practice law if I need to tomorrow. God forbid. But you know, it's letting go of all of the stories and the external, and understanding that at the end of the day, if you make a list of the things that you control in your life, that is a really short list. Okay. A really short list. So make that list sometime and then check it, and then take all the ones off that you actually don't control, and you're going to be left with a really short list.
Wow.
Right. So I try to focus on the things that I do have power over, right, and let go of the ones that I don't.
That's pretty important. You said that. I mean, like, especially nowadays, right? So like, people get involved in everything that's going on around the world, and they get all worked up about this and that and the third. It's like, you can control a certain amount of things, right? Focus on controlling that.
That's right.
Maybe it'll make your quality of life better. You can improve on those things.
That's
right. Got it.
That's right. You know, so That's right, man. And think of it like this, and all of these things are the conversations. So Jesse was asking about, he loves the idea of like, wow, you're up close and personal with these teams. The conversations are the same, right? So a conversation that I have with Coach Kidd really frequently is that you have a bucket of energy each day when you get up, or, in his case, maybe each time you go in the facility, right, to run practice or to go to the arena to coach a game. You have a bucket of energy, and you have a choice where you put that energy, right? And so when you splash it and throw it at things that there's no chance of real payback because you don't control them, you don't get that energy back. And so then throughout the day or the game, the energy diminishes, right? And so make choices intentionally about where you want your energy and why you're pulled to put it other places. And listen, we can all think and this is why the personal life is so powerful, because that's the places where we're off to the races, whether it's kids, partners, siblings, parents, right? That's the place we get off the races. So this literal conversation that we're having about, the world, kids, these things that really matter are the very tools that, that I use, and that really all great.
So like trial and error through life circumstances, life's ups and downs, just like kind of brought you this like moment of reflection, like, this is like things that everyone can use, the way that I'm learning and way like I'm forgetting about stuff that's happening in the courtroom. I'm overcoming my fears. It's kind of like, it's a good idea. I can teach this to people.
Except I stopped short of what it would look like. I just kept doing it, right? I kept because I can't control whether I'm going to get there, whether somebody's going to, find me useful or hire me. So I stopped short of, this is really where, where the turning point was. And if you look at, I'm not ever a book plugger. Thank you, Jesse, for holding it up. I don't go on shows and talk about my book. But if you open my book and read the dedication, it's a one page. I'm not saying do that now, but I'm talking to whoever's watching, right? So if you read the dedication, it's to my two sons, my Brett, we call them Mabs and Roman. They're 21 and 20, and I made the commitment that I was just going to be better.
Got it.
Right. And that is every day what drives me. Right. So I'm just going to be better, and I'm going to try my best to live in a way that I would want them to find their way to at some point. So
you were talking about like finding people to hire you for that. How did you get involved with these sports teams, like the Mavericks, right? So I guess the Mavericks is your claim to fame, maybe? No?
I mean,
but how did that happen? Like, how did you get involved with these teams?
I mean, I am blessed, right? I work with University of Northern Iowa, Coach Ben Jacobson, who's the all-time winningest coach in the Missouri Valley Conference. He's a legend.
Football, basketball?
Okay. Yeah. He's a legend. Coach AJ Green, who's with the Bucks. Unbelievable guy. I have the pleasure of working with Angie Nelp, who's the head coach of the women's team at Tulsa. Work with these cool companies. I work with Coach Kidd closely in the Mavericks, and I don't know that I certainly don't look at it as, I am blessed. I don't look at it as one is any more challenging or bigger than the other. How did I find my way there? In literal sense, it's by following. It's all relationships, right? So I dove deeply into understanding this for myself, and then it was really clear to me that this is like what I'm here to do. This is so. I talk about quiet the noise, right? So you can really hear your internal voice, hear the voice of your soul, right? And if you can hear the voice, if you can quiet the noise enough, right, which is what we're talking about ultimately, right? And it's, again, sports, right? Quiet the noise of the 25,000 fans that are in the arena, right? Because it's not actually that noise. It's what then happens in a guy or woman's head because of that. It's not actually the actual literal noise. It's what that does to create the story.
I can't even quiet the noise like when I'm throwing BP to the Little League baseball team and I'm missing and I can see I can't quiet that noise.
I played golf with Jess the other day and he can't quiet the noise over top of
what Jesse just said literally gives me PTSD back to when I coached my kids in Little League and they had this incredible run in the 9-10 Little League to the final 8 in Pennsylvania, and it just became this like all-in thing, right? And I can literally remember like hitting the kid in BP,
that'll really shake you up.
So, but to your point, they're like, this is real, right? So why does this matter in everyday life? And the lessons are the same. It's about quieting the noise, right? Yeah. And so, so I'll leave it there. How it happened is,
I'm going to stop you for 1 second.
No.
Speaking of quieting the noise, I'm going to have Mark ask another question, which is really
I love the flush of the
No,
toilet.
no.
I was like, did they do that on purpose? I haven't been on the show
this
before.
is a sound check veiled in a question. Can you lean into that mic and ask a question again here? All right, go ahead. Just ask a question. We don't have to answer it though.
All right, so we're
Quickly,
just on
preferably.
the, Jason Kidd and Mavericks thing, and just for the viewing audience and for people's edification. They went to the finals last year.
Really?
Unlike the Sixers.
Can you just explain your role and how you were involved in that? And then also, this is a question I don't think I have ever asked you. What's it like?
All right, not working. Good question though. Audio's not working from over there, so we're just gonna. Yeah. All right.
Can you relay the question so the
Yeah.
audience can hear?
I'll put it into the answer.
All right.
We'll get it.
Okay.
What is it like to walk into a situation where you're there to give a guy like Jason Kidd advice? I mean, the guy's a top 50 NBA player of all time. He's a Hall of Famer. He's incredibly accomplished on and off the court. And you're there to give him advice. And so, we talk about, these.
I don't think people can hear you, so the long-winded question is just tough.
And so, so my point is, talk about your value and also talk about what it's like to walk in the room charged with giving these professional athletes advice. And they're like, you've never been on the court with 25,000 people screaming when you're taking a three-pointer.
Yeah. So
How is he
Mark
supposed to
asked-
restate that
So no,
question?
so Mark, I think no, it's a critically important question. What Mark was asking is number one, like what do I really do that serves Coach Kidd and the Mavericks and the other teams I work with? But even more importantly, how do I show up without my imposter syndrome getting in the way? Is really what Mark's asking, right? So how do I show up? I'm going to give guidance and help to a guy like Coach Kidd, who is innately one of the great leaders that has ever played the game and that I certainly have ever met. I grew up watching him, right? And so, you see his leadership skills come out naturally. And so what am I there to do is to help him with communication, culture, right, with the players. And so what Mark's really asking is, like, I've never played basketball at any competitive level. And so the question is, how do I show up and do that effectively without my voices getting in my head, right? And the answer to that is that I check it every single day, right? Every time I walk in the Mavericks facility or elsewhere, is I check in with myself, right? And so that's really, really important to do. And it is part of what I do, right? Because that's me understanding my own wiring. And so, what I'm really, really doing is, with Coach Kidd particularly, here's somebody who is operating at the tip of the spear, has his whole life, right? So my role and what I'm healthily obsessed with doing is helping somebody at that level find a little bit more. And what makes him and so many greats so unique and so compelling is that they're trying every single day. So the thing that I maybe love most amongst a lot of things about Coach Kidd is that every single day he's getting up and trying to get better. This is a guy who's won Olympic gold medal. He's won an NBA championship. He was the MVP of the McDonald's All-American game when he was a kid. He's coached in the NBA finals, right? And he gets up every single day and is trying to get a little bit better. And, that means that I have to show up and do the same exact thing, right? And then together, you hope that the synergy, creates. And I think part of what you asked and Jesse wants to know is, so what does that kind of look like, right? What do you do and how do you do it? With any great team, it really boils down to like a number of things. Chemistry and trust is huge, and accountability, right? A willingness to hold one another accountable. So the answer is, like, that doesn't happen overnight. And so with the teams that I work with, we drip it daily, right? So depending upon the team, one of the things Coach Kidd asked me to help him implement is that the Mavericks meditate before each practice. And so I custom make those meditations based on where they are in the season, where they are in the game, where they are in the playoffs. And the meditations, while it's great to meditate, they're not as much about the meditation as they are the principle that we're meditating on, right? It might be self-awareness. It might be resilience. It might be non-reactivity. It might be, harnessing your passion. And so within each meditation is a reflection point. you know, and also, of course, the understanding that I'm not expecting these players to like, you know, go over to the bench at a timeout and meditate.
Yeah.
But what I am offering them is the ability to catch that story before it gets too far down the road. And you can do that with a single breath, right? So you can take the principle of meditation, and with a single breath, you can reset yourself, right? And check yourself, right? And so I'll just, you know, look at Jesse here, who is, again, he's wrangling with the equipment,
No,
and
you're not.
in each
You're
moment, in each moment, right, he's got a choice to, like, you know, throw the thing against the wall or continue to try to fix it. And so we're always dripping. With some of the teams that I work with, it's a, you know, daily 30-second video, an image, a quote, right?
So-
And so yeah.
So if I'm Shaq in the 2001 finals against the Sixers, and I'm just bricking every free throw, right? You come to me and you say what?
You know, the first thing I probably say to you is, do it, those free throws you bricked. So I'm never hide, raw and honest dialogue. I'll be like, man, you bricked those free throws.
Okay.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Because you got to pull back the veil, right? You got to just like own it, right?
Okay.
Man, you brick all the time, Shaq, but those were particularly, you know, impressive, you
Right.
know.
Can you shrink your hand?
You know, maybe I'll say, you're going to get your, you know, I think that's your union card with Bricklayers Union 322,
Yeah,
right? And then, you know, say, you know, something like is worrying about or being frustrated going to help you make the next one in any way, right? And so what can you do in that moment to reset in a way that lets you, you know, acknowledge what we all know, which is you can't get them back. But in our brain, we think we got, man, how did I miss that? How did I, right? So here's a perfect example. Like, that's a poor use of energy, but it's a human reaction.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's going to happen. And so you own it, and then you try to find a way to reset. And so the meditations just offer like right. You can reset yourself in a breath.
I was just going to say, it is a succinct question. How do you handle the guys that don't buy in?
You know, I'm not selling anything, right? So you just keep showing up, you know, and you know, the basketball or the other sports that I may work in, that's above my pay grade, right? Basketball is above my pay grade. And so a lot of that is the coach's job to, you know, weave in. Now I'm there to explain like really why it's important, right? And how it works. And I will tell you that I don't really find pushback. Different guys buy in at different levels, of course, right? And that can vary based on their life experience, their age, their personality. But these athletes are incredibly smart, incredibly competitive, and always looking for a little bit of an edge. And they're really smart. And so they take to it. The levels that they do, it's like raising kids, man. The more I tell them that they got to have it, the less that they want it. So you just show up.
So we've seen a lot of head cases in professional sports, right? One that comes to mind for me right now is Ben Simmons. But one that comes to mind to me right away is Ben Simmons, right? So two questions for you, right? So one, is there any athlete out there that you would want to work with personally and be like, hey, I feel like I can fix this guy. I feel like I can talk to him, give him a couple of tools to use, and get him in the right mindset to succeed. That's one. And then two, what would you do to fix a guy like Ben Simmons?
I mean, is there a single athlete? I mean, if I could get in a time machine, I'd work with John McEnroe.
Okay.
Right.
I like that.
If I get in a time machine, that would be one for me without question.
That's
cool.
Smack a hoe like John McEnroe.
John McEnroe. So, you know, where would I start? I think is your question with Ben Simmons.
Yeah.
You know, I think where I would start is resistance is futile, right? So the ways that he was probably trying to fight through his stuff wasn't working from what it appears.
He seems like to me like a guy who's like heavily influenced by what people think about him. Where he's like, oh, if I you know do it this way or that way, people are gonna think I'm corny or think I'm this or that.
That's the external.
I
mean, so first thing you have to do is understand it, right?
Yeah.
So that may be happening. It doesn't mean you understand it, right? And so you tell me, like when you're worried, when he's worried about that, or whoever the athlete is. I don't know if Ben was or wasn't. I haven't met him.
I don't know.
But what is it that's happening to somebody when they're like, man, what are they going to say when I miss the shot? What are they going to write about me tomorrow?
Mhm.
You know, what are the tweets going to be? Right. So what's happening? Like, what's happened to them? They're completely outside of where they need to be, which is in the present moment.
Right.
Right. So
Okay.
so the more present you are in a moment, the more powerful you are.
Ah.
Right. And so if you think about it like a time continuum, right? The ultimate like North Star in life is to be as present as possible. Right. Like right now in this podcast, right? You know, that's the only goal that I have when I come in is, can I be like totally here with you guys when I show up? Most importantly, because that's the best like experience for me, right? It's awesome. You know, I get to just be here right now. I can't be anywhere else, you know? So
We're not letting you leave.
if you can think of it, I'm on the outside. You had me trapped on the inside before, but now I can probably end around here. If you think about it as time continuum, right? And you say to yourself, okay, the goal in life for me is to be as present as I can, right? With my job, with my friends, with raising my kids, coaching my kid at Little League. And then you understand what gets you pulled off, right? So in a oversimplified way, you always know when you're not present and where you are, right? So if you're in the past, how did I miss that free throw? How did I brick those 5 free throws like Shaq? It's anger, resentment, frustration, right? Woulda, coulda, shoulda, right? And so you're getting pulled back, right? When you're like, oh man, well, I got to make the next one. Now you're in the future, right? Or if my kid doesn't get a good grade on this test, or my child doesn't get into this school, or doesn't pass their driver's test, or whatever the thing is, now you're the future, right? So you're stress, tension, fear, worry, anxiety. And so when you figure out when you're not present, it's easy to figure out where you are. And then that helps you to reset. Right. And so I talk to all the people I work with and anybody who cares to listen about thinking of it like a time continuum. Right. And how much time can I spend in the present, and how can I understand when I'm elsewhere? So back to, you know, your hypothetical of what may have been happening with Ben Simmons, right? You know, he may have been like, man, I can't believe they said that about me, which is right. Or, oh man, if they ain't going to quiet ever, if I don't have a better game tonight, or I don't, right, they're never going to get quiet. So
just focus on the moment, basically.
Yeah. And understand the emotions, right? Like anxiety is future, right? You know, frustration, resentment, that's past.
Okay.
So it's before game 1 of the NBA Finals last year. What was the message to the team?
It was, you know, you're going into a real true enemy territory. You know, I mean, TD Garden is enemy territory. You know, do what you've been doing all season. Be present. You know, trust, rely on your chemistry, and trust. Hold one another accountable and have each other's backs, you know, and be present and understand that it's going to be loud in every way and distracting, and that you may hear some like incredibly nasty things, and, you know, all these things that obviously professional athletes know, but, you know, it's always good to hear them again. And, you know, it's nobody better to hear them from than Coach Kidd. I mean, they're hearing them from him, you know. I'm there to help him, you know, gather and process and figure out how to articulate it. I've had the pleasure of, you know, creating all these cool meditations for the players and obviously interacting with them. But at the end of the day, he's got an unbelievable staff, like incredible. He's incredible. They, you know, great culture, and you just keep doing what they've been doing all year. You know, that's really the thing.
For someone whose role is to make them better, some small amount, right? Easier or harder to do it last year when they're achieving going to the finals, or this year when a lot of factors come into play and it's not as successful as they wanted it to be? Is it easier to work when there's more room to grow, or easier to work when you're, you know, at the pinnacle?
So, I mean, you know, I believe and live what I teach and preach. And so I don't use, you know, better, you know, I'm not there to make them better. I'm there to give them tools, you know, through, you know, Coach Kidd and the staff and the things that, you know, they have done there and graciously invited me in to help with. I give them the tools for them to choose how they're going to utilize them and make themselves more powerful and more effective in the moment. I don't ever think about it as, is this better or worse? Is this harder or easier? Like I really don't. And so the message, the substance of the message may change, right? So This year, anybody can look and say, listen, that was an unbelievably resilient bunch, right? The way that the Mavericks team stayed together, they had nights where they're literally by the end of the game would not have had enough players to start the game. So you have to have 8 players or more to start an NBA game. There were games that finished with them having not enough players to start. These guys like stayed together in ways that are really, really incredibly admirable. And there's so much to learn, so much. And so this is what happens in the noise, right? The noise is, oh my gosh, all these things in Dallas, right? But if you watched what was happening there, I think without question, it was probably Coach Kidd's greatest season, greatest accomplishment as a coach. I don't think that there's any question about that. The way that he held that group of players together and that coaching staff, and you could see on the floor how they care about each other. No one ever, there was not a crossword on that team, period. And that is emotional intelligence, because there was a lot of stuff. You had 2-way guys coming and going from the roster. You have injuries that were like nothing that's ever been seen, certainly in the last, bunch of years. So that's all kudos to Coach Kidd. That's a culture of resilience and ultimately any winning culture that's going to be sustained, you're going to have to be resilient. You're going to have to work through hard times. So, I mean, that is like when you peel it all away and you quiet the noise, that's the story of this season is that coaching staff and those players crushed it under incredibly difficult circumstances.
That was a tough season. Like there's people stepping up. I forget the guy, but there's people stepping up. I was like, damn,
there were a lot of guys. There were so many that I wouldn't even name one. When you go back and watch, you could probably Google. I don't know off the top of my head how many.
Washington who stepped up, and there was oh god, why am I drawing a blank on this guy's name?
So I'm gonna give you guys this. Somebody Google at some point how many different starting lineups did the Dallas Mavericks have this NBA season. So if there's somebody out there that's watching, drop it in the chat. But
our stat guys often,
So anyway, yeah.
I got a personal question, and I'm going to ask this question and let Jess come back or Mike come back. I need a tool, right? So it's like the 18th hole, maybe 17th hole, and I'm playing against Jess and Goodhart.
Rocky's a really good golfer, by the way.
I'm standing over
Rocky Fowler.
I'm standing over a 6-foot putt for the match, right? So my heart's beating a little bit. I got a couple $100 on this match, not really, but I got a big putt, and everything's racing through my mind. What do I need to do in that moment to bang that putt?
Number one thing is, and I want to in a second go to what happened to Rory at the Masters, right? We'll talk about that.
Falling apart.
I see it as rebounding from missing that very putt you're talking about, right?
Right.
So that's how I see it.
Okay.
But to answer your question, the first thing you have to do is acknowledge how darn badly you want to make that putt. That is, so you got to step back and you just have to own the fact that just, you just want to make that putt to show these guys to win the $100 or the $1 or the beer after whatever you're betting, right?
Yeah.
You got to acknowledge how much you want that. And then you have to, and listen, the mind works really quickly. This can happen in a matter of moments, right? How distracting that is to the actual putt, right? That's the thing, right? How distracting is it that, man, I got to make this putt, I'm going to be hearing about it all week. How distracting is that? Right? How distracting is that? So how distracting is that, Jesse, without the mic there? Come on over here. Tell us.
I asked the question.
How distracting is that? Come on in here.
Musical chair.
And I don't care if you make it next time.
Wait.
I only care that you run through that process.
I
Go
can
ahead.
tell you.
How
Wait,
distracting
it's
is
funny.
that?
Here comes the other end of this. Look, I think what you probably do is get people to think in the way that I think when I'm actually doing well, right? And on the golf course, there's 2 different types of putts for me. It's very simple. The first is, and this is my problem. I haven't been out enough, and I haven't had any confidence. So like, as I pull the putter back, I'm like, I don't know if this is the right distance, I don't. And then somehow I like snap hook a 4-foot putt, right? But when I'm playing well and I've been playing and I'm in the season and I'm feeling good, it's like I can make any putt on the green. You know what I mean? And when I go to hit the putt, I'm like, this could go in. Any putt that I hit could go in. And that's where my mind is. And nothing else is in there. And, I think the hardest part, because for me, my belief system is informed by whatever's happening, right? So I am just not the kind of person that can show up at the golf course without having practiced forever and actually believe that I'm going to play a good round, right? So I need to do certain things to have the belief. You know what I mean? And it's funny with my kid, I've been telling him, this is the phrase I like. If you want to use this, you feel free. I tell him, I say reckless self-belief, right? Like your self-belief has to be unaffected by the ups and downs, right? You look at like Bryce Harper, right? He might strike out Castellanos struck out like 5 times in a game earlier this season, I believe, right? The next game, he's a professional. If he's good enough at what he does, like he's going to get up there and believe in all his heart that he can hit the ball just regardless of the fact that he struck out 5 times. I think that's the battle right there. Like, how do you not let the realities of what's going on and what has happened affect you? You have to have, in my mind, like unshakable confidence. And your mind is in there rationalizing that and telling you, well, you really, you shouldn't have unshakable confidence because you haven't hit well in your past 10. You know what I mean? Like that, at least that's why I think about it in my mind. Is that too much for you?
No, it's not. There's a lot. Listen, there's a lot baked in there. No, there is.
I know,
right?
That's why I have a hard time.
So let's unpack that. Right. So let's unpack it. Because there are a lot of layers. Amongst a bunch of sayings and mantras, all the things can be true. Right. Some of the things that are going on in your head can be true. Right. The question is when and how do we have them be productive and not be distractions, right? So let me start there, right? It is very true. So the story you're telling yourself, you have a whole bunch of stories going on, right?
There's so much.
Now the reality is that however you show up at the course, the goal, of course, is to be the best version of yourself that day, right? So if it's the first day of the season and you haven't been playing, no, it's the best version of yourself that day,
right?
Not the best version of yourself. Right, not the best version of yourself. So if we set
turns out that wasn't a 98.
If we set out to be the very best, same version of ourselves all the time, then you're setting up. It's impossible, right? Because some days you show up better than others. Some days you didn't sleep as well. You didn't do this.
Some days the podcast works.
There you go. Some days the mics work. Sometimes they don't. So let's take it to the golf, right? And where there's true and not true. It is very true that unshakable self-confidence is ultimately the key to the highest level of performance. Okay. And I'll put it in what I think is the ultimate context in a second, but it is true that unwavering self-confidence, right? True self-confidence. That's what I call emotionally intelligent, true self-confidence. You might call it flow. You might call it in the zone, right? If you're athletes, but at the end of the day, it is the difference between, being able to go into a room and say hi to you guys and talk and really believing in myself. Right. So there's confidence and then there's true self-confidence, right? So it is true that you need that. It is also true that when you have been playing consistently for a longer period of time, you're probably going to putt the ball better, right? That is true. Why is that true? That is true because ultimately it is the process that creates the foundation for the true self-confidence. Right. And the belief. You have to actually do it. You got to do it now. Let me say this then. So this is like, for all you golfers or non-golfers out there listening. But here's the thing. You still have to make that putt on that day when you haven't been playing and you haven't had as many putts and et cetera. You still want to make the putt that day. Okay.
I do, but I know I'm not going to.
Okay. So here's where it diverges, right? See, because there's a lot of truth in your stories, right? Yeah. Here's where it diverges is if you want to put yourself in the best position to make the putt on that day, it's taking ownership of the fact that you're defeating yourself, right? And you have to do that. But here's the thing: it's muscle memory. When you try to correct that, right? No, I'm not going to tell myself the story today. That's just your mind doubling down and really kicking your ass, right? When you're like, I'm not going to tell myself the story. Of course, you're going to tell yourself the story, right? And you're going to tell yourself the story tomorrow and the next day and all that, right? So what happens is it's just acknowledgement. Man, there I am telling myself that story again, right? And over and over and over again, right? And so over time, you will put yourself in a better position to make that putt. You can't send yourself out in the last 20 days and have golfed every single day and be feeling smoother. But what you can do is quiet that in that moment to give yourself the best chance.
And that's why I'm guessing.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah. And so probably what I should be doing and what most people should be doing is having a process, more of like a physical process, right? Where it's like, okay, if I you know, I'm going to put the ball here, a little forward lean in the shaft, get my point and go, instead of letting my
Yes.
mind do all that
So-
stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that is it. So let's put it like, you know, full circle for City Pigeon, put it in sports context. Right. So for me, you are currently like in real time watching maybe the greatest sports example of what we're talking about of all time. And that is that, you know, you can argue about, you know, who the greatest basketball player is of all time. You can argue about, you know, who the greatest defender is, right? But there is little to no argument about who the greatest shooter of all time is, and that's Steph Curry. All right. And so why is that true? That is true because that if you watch him either in a game, YouTube videos of him practicing, working out, he is literally completely devoid of zero thought about whether the ball is going in.
Right.
Ever. Whether he's shooting from the 10th
Well, that's my
row
point.
in the arena.
And
right?
if it doesn't,
so
it doesn't change
and
that.
but ultimately, yes, but ultimately he's able to do that because his process is at some point in time, he let go of everything and put it in his process. And so he gets maximum result from every practice shot, because he developed, as you said, this process. So if you start like on your next putt with developing a process, right?
All right.
And you commit to it and you stick to it
I have
over
an
time.
idea. So I'm
right?
going to go
Over
to
time.
the golf course.
Okay.
And I'm going to go to the
Good
putting
first
green.
step.
I'm going to go to the putting green. And I'm going to putt. I've seen his routine. I'm going to putt from like 6 inches. And by the time I'm done, I'm going to be putting from the clubhouse. You know what I mean? I'm just putt
Same thing.
long range. It doesn't matter if it can even actually roll onto the green. You know what I mean? Just keep going deeper and deeper. No, listen, you know, the whole thing is there's so much that goes into all this. And for you to do it at that level, I cannot imagine. I mean, it must have been so amazing just to be in that situation. You're probably kicking yourself. It's like, oh my gosh, can't believe the things that I'm experiencing. And kudos to you for developing something. And I think everybody thinks about changing careers and thinks about doing their own thing. And anybody who's tried that knows that, you know, it's a long road. It's very difficult. And to be able to do things like you've done is just fantastic, man. And we commend you. And I apologize that we, you know, I don't know why those microphones aren't working and these are, but I'm no audio engineer, just a guy that started a podcast and tried to do it all. So
120 episodes later, buddy.
yeah.
First time it's ever happened.
Yeah. Well, we've had, you know, look, we've had our moments, you know what I mean? But
You're gonna hate me for this. I actually have 3 more things that I need to cover.
that sounds like a lot, but you know what?
We'll do them quickly.
Yeah.
But
Somebody's 5th birthday.
Philadelphia.
Rock, get up there.
Okay.
I don't think
Sounds like-
Jesse's having me back, by the way, because he said this isn't going to work on the golf course. He's like, screw this guy.
No,
Before we
no,
sing Happy
no.
Birthday, Rock.
We're having a call after this. I need to freaking-
One is very quick. 2 might be a little longer.
Really long.
And 3.
There's a freaking candle burning.
I'll be quick.
Here's
Go.
the first thing.
He still won't
There-
let it happen.
4 major sports teams in Philadelphia. As far as I know, you work with none of them. Which one would you want to work with the most and why?
I mean, everyone's got a unique challenge.
Because they're all fucking head cases.
We need you for the Sixers.
I would say, man, I love hockey players. They are incredible. And they're all about this, right? They're all about this in a visceral way. So I'll take the Flyers right now.
Wow.
Okay.
But
Maybe the biggest challenge in a Flyers Sixers.
You know?
Tough. Tough call. Number 2.
Number 2. Not getting into politics, what would you have done differently if you were counseling Saquon Barkley this week and he was going to listen to you?
I mean, listen,
As a
I think-
whole episode.
I think here's what I'll say about this.
I
right?
wanted to get to this earlier
that-
when we had more time, but
No, here's the thing, right? So, you know, folks out there know he got himself into the spotlight about whether, you know, golf with the president, not golf with the president. To me, the question is always thinking through. So it's self-awareness and it's slowing down, thinking through about all of the angles and whatever it is that anybody chooses to do. You know, when you talk about it or ask to explain it, you want to be responsive, not reactive, right? And so this is true.
Never send that email right away, right?
Listen, that absolutely right. It is, you know, the biggest thing I do now that I didn't used to do is nothing.
Nothing is good.
Okay? And so,
I'm big on nothing.
And so, yeah, so it's really just about because when you think it through, then whatever comes, right? And so it's really about being responsive, not reactive. That is true. And again, like, you know, it's not about the ultimate decision you make. If you look at Jalen Hurts' non-response at the time 100, right? That was a very responsive, not reactive,
Yeah.
non-response, right?
Yep.
He had clearly knew he was going to get asked about it, or at least had thought about it, or we get asked about it after the fact because he had clearly already decided not to go, right? And so there's a great juxtaposition. And it's just true. And you can apply that to, any kind of like PR thing that's handled well or PR thing that becomes a disaster, right?
And we talked about this, and I thought that
To quote the great prodigy of Mobb Deep in one of the greatest songs of the infamous, "Take your time and think it through, or the next rhyme I write might be about you." Suddenly shut.
Happy birthday, Mom Deep.
and we talked about this a little bit. I actually thought, everything was what it was until he was laying in bed that morning and shot off that tweet. And I thought that was so reactive. And it was either a product of just pure reactivity or not putting yourself in a position to slow down, think about it, or get advice, or you're ignoring advice. And so until that point, it was what it was. But
Can you just say what he wants to say?
That moment was the
Like,
reactivity
I
of,
understand.
do you want to be the guy who's just firing off some tweet? When you're
I didn't think that was like some horrible tweet. Like, I don't know. Like the guy
Here's what I would say to all the essence of this conversation we're having about sports and family and like golf and all this like wide ranging thing is, if I was asked about it or, Saquon asked me now, I'd say, man, this is an incredible opportunity to just like reflect and dissect this. It doesn't matter. Was it reactive? Wasn't it reactive? Like, let's just go back to that moment that you sent the tweet. And
What if he just wanted access to golf courses whenever he wanted?
listen,
I think that's a big part of it.
seriously, man.
So
who gives a shit either way?
a big part of all the stuff we're talking about is if you are firmly clear on what your why is, then all of this stuff ends up taking care of itself. Right. And I can't respond to what that was. But what I would say is all these things,
2,000 yards, buddy.
these are all great learning lessons though, right? The golf thing for you, all of it.
Well, that actually brings me to my third and final point, and Jesse's very happy about that, is I actually think the best learning lesson, and there's irony, there's coincidence, and there's just because it should happen this way. Isn't it awesome that the night that you come on the podcast, all the technology goes awry and Jesse is put to the very test where you help people? And I think actually it was meant to be. It's a good thing. We'll have you back again when it's all working right, but it doesn't even fucking matter because the test of reactivity, slowing down, being in the moment, finding Polaris, all of that actually just happened right in front of our eyes while you're here with this tech.
So I'm gonna leave it with, we're clearly cousins and connected at the brain. I ran a virtual training. It's been about a year ago now, the first in a long series with Xerox, and everything, as often happens on a first training, that could go wrong did. And so there were maybe 75 virtual attendees, and I was like, yes, this is awesome. Like for this very reason, that is literally, and the like part of the training turned into, the folks that were trying to fix it and work on it. I was like, this is great. I didn't even plan this. So big yes to that. So out in your own lives, this just, the next time you're like, oh, why did I do it that way?
This isn't a good thing for
Just
Jesse.
dissect it. So, all right.
Normally,
Go ahead,
nah,
Jess.
but the truth is, like, if there was
You did
someone,
great, man.
if there was someone I could blame it on, then I would be upset. But I really have no idea what's going on. And it is what it is. And what are you gonna do, man? You
Thanks for
try
having
your
me,
best.
man.
Dude,
Happy
thank you.
birthday.
Hey.
We got 3 things going on here.
All right, hold up. It is Roger Rocker Matthews' birthday at midnight.
At midnight.
At midnight. So don't send him a message yet unless
He's
you want to
still
do it in
44.
advance. We couldn't find a 4.
Couldn't find a 0.
No, 0. No, he's not 50. We couldn't find the 4. So Raj is turning 5. Happy birthday, Raj.
Thank
I
you,
hope
thank you, thank you.
that tomorrow you find some. What are you going to do for your birthday? Got any plans?
Gonna find a 4.
My wife's taking me away somewhere.
You said my wife's taking me away
To
somewhere.
the insane.
I have no idea where she's
Right, that
taking me.
means that right
So
there. She's
That's
putting me
amazing.
away.
it's possible she might be taking me to the
That's
insane
amazing.
asylum. So I don't know. So we're
What if
going-
she's taking you to like Pine Valley? You know what I mean?
That'd be sick.
Imagine that.
Yeah. I doubt it.
Set that up. Guys got the expectation.
Imagine that.
No, whatever
Happy
happens.
birthday, Rod.
Thank you guys. Whatever happens, I'm sure she's got
Yeah.
something.
Nah, Lindsay does a good job.
Yeah.
And she, by the way, brought to our attention that the podcast wasn't really coming through tonight. So, Lindsay, thank you for
If
that.
it wasn't for Lindsay, we would have went through like my birthday 2
Yeah.
weeks ago, and no one would have known.
Yeah, well, you know what I mean? So, hey, look, man, how are we supposed to know?
No, that's a good thing. I don't like my birthday. I don't like anyone.
We're
acknowledging
all
it.
old and have a lot of
Happy
stuff
birthday,
to do.
Meech.
Happy birthday,
Happy
Meech.
related.
Meech, happy belated
Oh,
birthday.
we could use the 5
No,
for you.
it was-
Sorry, we didn't see it on your
No.
Facebook or whatever
Well,
the
I'm
frick it is.
46.
All right,
Having
congratulations.
five's nothing to do with
Shit, I'm still-
All right, folks. I don't know where we go from here. I don't even know what we're gonna do next week, but this was good, Bob. Look,
Grab that
Finding Polaris. Check this out, and
We
Bob,
didn't get
good
to
luck
talk
to
about
you.
Lynn Doyle.
We didn't even talk about Lynn Doyle.
Where I started my
And
life.
we didn't get to hear this mysterious story unless you want to end with that.
I'm not. Jesse's ready to get us out of here. If you're gracious enough and have me back sometime, I have a story that involves your father that is
we
truly
definitely need
epic.
that.
I think we're gonna
Truly
have to
epic.
have you back because this didn't go according.
It
to
involves
plan.
your father in a handcuff cape.
All right, that sounds.
Hey.
I don't know if I want to hear this. There's a lot of stories about my.
What a teaser!
I'm gonna let it go.
On
Peace.
next week's
Hey,
episode.
if you hung,
Birthday, Rock.
happy
Thank you,
birthday,
guys.
Rocky. If you hung with us, thank you. We appreciate it. And check out Bob. Check out IronAdvocate.com
.com.
and
Finding Polaris. The
onward
next,
and upward,
Interexcellence, right?
folks.
It's the next Interexcellence.
Have a great evening. We'll see.